Most of the competitors for the tournament looked speechless and scared at what Vegeta did to the punching machine. The announcer and the helper looked freaked out as well. The competitors moved out of Vegeta's way when he walked away. Break you by right. Gohan said, not sure what to say. I'm giving up, that guy would turn me inside out. A competitor said, leaving. Nice Vegeta. Gohan said, knowing the man takes things too far sometimes. Wait, you're not in the least bit surprised, didn't you see what he did to that machine? Vital questioned, wondering why he didn't seem the least bit surprised. Oh, I saw, surprising. Gohan said, a little nervous. I don't understand it, it's like they're all in this big group together and they can all lift cars and buses, they're all scoring in the 200s and my dad only got a 137. Vital said, trying to figure it all out. Yeah, how weird. Gohan replied. The announcer spoke up. Hello, we're experiencing a few technical difficulties, we should be getting a new machine out here pretty quick, so stick around. The announcer spoke as Goku turned to Vegeta. Hey Vegeta, I heard they're starting the junior competition in a few minutes in the main arena, do you wanna go? Goku asked to his rival. Fine, let's go, anything's better than this lame sideshow. Vegeta said as the group started making their way to the main arena. Just look, see how they walk, so tough. Vital said, a little rough seeing the group come her and Gohan's way. Hello there. Goku said causally. Huh. Vital seemed surprised by the greeting. So you're the girl I keep hearing about, introduce her will ya? Goku said, turning to his son. Yeah, she's my friend, Vital. Gohan said, introducing his friend to his father. Krillin chuckled. Come on Gohan, don't you mean to say your girlfriend? Krillin said, cheeky. You're embarrassing me. Gohan said shyly as Vital looked back and forth at them. Well, we don't want to be late to see Trunks, Goten, Paul and Ash fight, it was nice meeting you Vital. Goku said as he continued walking. Good luck Gohan. Krillin said, going too. Bye, I'd wish they'd hurry up with that punching machine. Gohan said, seeing them walk away. You know them? Vital asked, wondering how Gohan knew the people in that group. Sure, the man wearing the orange uniform, he's my dad. Gohan replied like it was no big deal. What? I thought your dad was with another woman. Vital said, shocked that Gohan's father was here. Oh no, just dead, didn't you see the ring floating over his head? Gohan asked, wondering if she saw the halo, signifying that meant he was dead. I think I need to lie down. Vital said, needing a moment to process all this information. Tournament main arena. The announcer came in and explained that the junior tournament was going to have the prizes of 1th being 1 million zeni and a chance to fight Mr. Satan. The Mr. Satan himself came in looking like a boss, only to screw up the landing and landed on his head. Then they played some video showing what had really happened at the Cell games. Most of the Z fighters were not amused. But inside the waiting arena, Ash, Paul, Trunks and Goten waited. Some other kids were saying they were gonna win and shake Mr. Satan's hand. Whatcha buying with the money? Trunks asked to the two Sun twins. Toys I guess. Goten said innocently. Nothing really, I'm kinda okay where I am now. Ash said, knowing he didn't want anything. You're such a toddler. Trunks said to Goten, being okay with Ash's answer. What about you and Paul? Goten asked as Trunks looked up as Paul had his arms crossed. I'm not sure what I'm gonna buy. Trunks said as there wasn't anything he wanted. I have everything I want, so I have no desires right now. Paul answered. Yeah, I guess when your family's the richest in the world, there ain't many toys that you don't have. Goten said as Trunks stayed silent, before speaking up again. I can't decide, maybe I'll buy you two some better looking haircuts. Trunks said, seeing their wild hairstyles. Hair what? Goten said, confused. No thanks, I like my hair the way it. Ash said, getting into the talk. Hey half-pipe, you're gonna be my first victim. I hope you're wearing your diapers, haha, you'll need the extra panning. The blonde kid said, trying to intimidate Trunks, and launched a punch that stopped at Trunks' face. Trunks didn't even flinch. Don't you flinch? The blonde kid questioned as Trunks didn't look amused. Not from weaklings. Trunks said with a small smirk. What? The blonde kid stated in shock. You best walk away. Trunks said again. How dare you, haha, you just sealed your fate shorty, I'm gonna beat you so hard you'll have a concussion. The blonde kid stated. Sounds fun. Trunks said as Paul finally decided to get involved. Enough already, if either of you two start a fight now, you'll both be kicked out, so get lost already. Paul stated to the kid as the blonde kid and his friends walked away. But outside, the crowd was cheering for things to get started. Videos of the movie you just saw will be on sale in every exit for 19.95. Now let's tighten these fighting gears and start the junior competition. The announcer stated with the crowd cheering. Up in the top of the stands, the Z fighters were watching. It's amazing how it's changed, crazy huh? Krillin said seeing the tournament looked different. It looks like the ring is a bit bigger this year. Goku said seeing the ring having much more space this time around. Good makes for better fighting. Piccolo said seeing the benefits of having a bigger arena. Look, Trunks, Goten, Paul and Ash. Krillin said pointing to the group of kids coming out and getting onto the ring. Unlike the adult competition, there is no qualifying round. All 35 of these young fighters are all going to test their might in the ring. Rules are same as the big leagues. Whoever gives up, lands outside the ring, stays down for 10 counts or loses consciousness will lose it all. The announcer told to the crowd. Ash and Paul will be taking the spots of two kids in this. Go all the way Trunks, Paul. Bulma called out to her sons. Go Goten and Ash. Chi-Chi called out to her sons as well. Oolong was slipping his drink before it slipped on his face when a big lady bumped him. This seat will be absolutely perfect to watch Idasa. He's going to make his mother so wealthy. The women laughed as Oolong looked mad. Back at the punching machine arena, Gohan and Videl were still waiting in line for their turns when they heard the announcement of the junior competition starting. Ah darn, it's starting, I was hoping we'd be done by now. Gohan said not wanting to miss his brother's fights. It's fine, we'll see Goten and Ash when they advances. Videl said calming the teenager down. In the turns of the fights, it was Ash's turn up against some random kid. Up next, it's a 9-year-old Henry versus a 7-year Ash. The announcer called out as Ash and a dirty blonde-haired boy came into the ring. Yeah, he's finally up. Goku said excited to see what his son could do. Do you best, wait at best, Ash might hurt someone, or who am I kidding Ash knows how to control himself. Krillin said as he was right. The moment the match started the kid tried to attack Ash but Ash only flicked his finger to the kid's forehead with enough force sending the kid out of the ring without really hurting him. And the winner is Ash and he advances. The announcer called out as the crowd cheered. Good job Ash. Chi-Chi called out as Ash left the ring. His opponent wasn't really hurt from that, Ash's control is great. Goku said noticing his son's control over his power. Yeah, I know, I've been training him. Piccolo chimed in. Huh, really you have Piccolo, well it's no surprise then. Goku said as Piccolo smirked as well as proud of his student. Let's bring out the next pair, 8-year-old Trunks vs 15-year-old Idasa. The announcer told as Goku noticed. Well here we go. Goku said as Vegeta paid attention to this fight. Do okay. Krillin said as this time, this was Vegeta's son so he was more likely to hurt someone. Trunks and Idasa walked into the ring. Are you ready to cry short stack? Idasa questioned to Trunks. Please, don't talk. Trunks said as he wasn't in a mood for this jerk's big talk. Ha, you sure you don't wanna beg? Idasa asked. You sure you wanna live? Trunks said. Ice cream I love you. Oolong looking at his cone before having his face shoved into by the big women. Idasa Yuhu. The women called out. Excuse me. Oolong said annoyed with this women. I wish they would match Idasa with a bigger kid, this won't even warm my boy up. I just can't believe my camera decided to break, how's they expect me to take a picture of my son's rise to fame? The women stated annoying Bulma a lot. Get Trunks, you make that boy sorry he ever met you. Bulma called out to her son. Hun, you're dreaming. The women said making Bulma stick her tongue at her. Let's go. The announcer stated starting the match as Idasa got into a stance. Come on you little shortcake, fight. Idasa said taunting Trunks. Don't you worry, you'll feel it soon enough big mouth. Trunks said before sweeping the guy off his feet with a low kick and kicking him into the sky. All the spectators looked at the flying boy go up and then down. Trunks walked away as Idasa landed on his face, knocked out. Oops, guess I shouldn't have hit him so hard, but at least he's quiet. Trunks said as he walked away as the announcer checked Idasa. This boy is out cold. Trunks advances. The announcer called out as crowd was a little speechless at this. Idasa. The women stated in shock as Bulma flashed a peace sign with a smug look. Oh well, looks like it won't be any fun until Ash, Paul, Goten and Trunks fight. Krillin said knowing the fights will be boring until the boys themselves fight. You sure did best that boy fast Trunks. Goten said happy for his friend. You see now why I wanted to fight in the adult competition, do ya? Trunks asked to Goten. Uh-huh. Goten said. Not me, my point still stands. If anything, this means I can preserve my energy until I really need it. Paul said knowing this junior fighting was for the best. He's right, best save your energy. Remember any of us could fight one another, so remember that Trunks. Ash explained to the oldest in their group. I guess you're right. Trunks said knowing he could easily fight Goten, Ash or his brother Paul here, so he guess it wasn't all bad. A round or two later. Yeah baby, sounds like a dandy. Here we go, we've got Ecos, an expert 14-year-old, against Goten, a 7-year-old boy. Come on folks, let's hear for these young warriors. The announcer called out as the crowd cheered as Goten was shaking a bit. The two made their way to the ring. Here they come. Oh my gosh, David versus Goliath. Ecos has a full head over Goten. The announcer said as the two got into the ring. Haha, you look nervous. Ecos taunted as Goten rubbed his head nervously. Alright Goten, woohoo yeah. Goku called out, happy to see his other son out on the field now. He looks like a miniature you Goku. Krillin said as Goku looked closer. Aw, what a little guy, and handsome too. Goku said. Ladies and gentlemen, the match is about to begin. The announcer told to the crowd. Small fry, tear him up Ecos, remember what happened to your brother, show no mercy. The women called out to her second son. Goten, relax, you'll do fine. Chi-Chi called out her son. That vulgar little preschool tiny tot doesn't have a chance against my big strong Ecos, we'll let him have it son. The women called out again. Hey, wasn't that your other big strong son that my little boy knocked out cold earlier with one little kick? Bulma said as the women got in Bulma's face. So that little pipsqueak punk was your son? Well, he got lucky, one miracle's enough for one day. The women snarked back. I can't believe all of these people are here. Goten said in awe at seeing all the people around. It's enough to make you wanna run home crying, isn't it kid? Look, I don't wanna embarrass you in front of all these people, for your sake I'm end this quick. Ecos stated to the boy. The announcer suddenly noticed something. What, oh my gosh. Goten, remarkable, he looks just like Goku did when he was a boy and fought against Jackie Chun all those years ago. I'll never forget it, that was the best match I've ever seen. There was no junior class back then, but little Goku still made it to the finals. Yes, the resemblance is uncanny. And that other boy, Ash, he looks almost the same as Goten as well. If they're not Goku's sons, then I'm Monkey's uncle. Alright fighters, are you ready? Let the match begin. The announcer called out after remembering the fights Goku had when he was a kid. Ecos clocked his fist together as Goten made a bow motion. Let the match begin. The announcer stated as the crowd cheered. Come on Goten, you can do it son. Chi-Chi cheered for her son. Ecos, beat the hoe out of that runt. The women stated to her son. What's the matter kid, you scared? Come on, it ain't gonna hurt that bad, let's do it. Ecos taunted, throwing punches before he was getting tired as Goten just stood there staring. Are you okay? Goten asked. Me? Yeah right kid, gimme a break, am I okay? Man, you're asking for it. Ecos stated as he finally threw a punch to Goten. Who blocked it with only his finger. Ecos looked shocked and tried to play it off by throwing a kick but was blocked too by Goten's arm. Hey, stop fooling around, come on, let's be serious. Goten said, thinking the kid wasn't giving it his all. Touché, so you know a little martial arts after all, not bad for a pint-sized kid. Ecos stated. Oh look, he's too scared to throw a punch at my Ecos. The women said. I'll give him 5 minutes at the most, and that's only if he's extremely lucky. Bulma bragged again. Knock him out. Ecos floor him. I want you to knock that kid's block off, do you hear me? The women yelled, extremely mad now. Ecos was throwing punches and kicks to Goten, who basically blocked them all with no effort at all and looked quite bored at what he was seeing. So, this is it, this isn't very fun. Goten said before he finally threw a punch of his own at Ecos's face. And the result was that Ecos shook from the hit and fell on his back, knocked out. Yeah, that at boy, alright Goten. Goku called out for his son. What a cliffhanger. Krillin said, bored knowing what the result was from the start. Goodness gracious, wow, what a punch. He's out cold. Folks, we have a winner over here, let's hear it for Goten. The announcer told to the crowd, who cheered for Goten, making him happy. Bulma started making faces at the women, mocking her as the women growled. I'm going to kill you. The women stated and went for Bulma, only to get knocked out from a punch from Chi-Chi. Come on, who do you think taught him? Chi-Chi said. Now the next match, 8-year Paul vs 10-year-old Kyo. The announcer told as Paul and another boy walked on the stage. And now there's Paul. Krillin said, knowing he doesn't have to keep telling them to do okay and their best. Do okay, Paul. Bulma called out to her youngest son. Begin. The announcer told as the other kid rushed at Paul and threw a punch, which Paul caught, scaring the kid. Paul tightened his grip and hoisted the kid up and threw him out of the arena. Ring out. Paul advances as the winner. The announcer told as the crowd cheered again. Yes. Bulma said, glad Paul advances, but knowing it wasn't surprising. Vegeta grunted, knowing that Paul was supposed to win. It wasn't hard to see. A few fights later, a surprising pair was coming up. Next up, 7-year-old Ash vs 8-year Trunks. The announcer told as Ash and Trunks started to walk towards the ring. Okay, now it's going to get interesting. Krillin said, knowing that an actual exciting fight was going to get started for once in this junior tournament. Yeah, we'll finally get to see what the boys can really do now. Goku said, excited to see what Ash had under his belt to show them. I'm sure that Trunks will become the winner of this fight, he was training with me whole time. Vegeta said, hoping that Trunks could prove his power superior to Kakarot's brat as Ash and Trunks got into the ring. We'll have to see about that, Vegeta. Piccolo stated as he was sure that Ash would be the winner of this fight. Vegeta didn't bother responding. Let's just enjoy the fight ahead. I'm really curious to see what they can do. I wanna see how this new generation fights. Goku said, really excited. Come on Ash, you can win this. Chi-Chi cheered for her son to win this fight. Trunks, you can do it. Bulma cheered for her own son as well. Master Roshi stared at the two boys, wondering who will win this fight, though he is thinking that Ash would win because of his little note during the flight here, a loophole to the note turning Super Saiyan rule. Paul was actually paying attention to this fight. He wanted to see what Ash would do, as he said he found a loophole to the no Super Saiyan rule and wanted to see what he would do so he could do it himself. Begin. The announcer proclaimed to the two young fighters. Well Ash, I didn't expect you to be my opponent so soon. Trunks said, knowing that he wanted to fight his best friend Goten, but Ash was a good pick too. Well, it wasn't unexpected. Your match was after mine, so I made the connection real quick. Ash told to the older boy. I guess so, but I hope you're ready Ash, I'm not gonna hold back on you. Trunks said, getting ready, knowing that Ash wasn't like these other weakling kids. I know that you're looking for a good fight Trunks, but you're gonna be disappointed. I have to save most of my energy for your brother Paul. He's the one I really want to fight, so I have to make this quick. Ash said, knowing that this is where Trunks' stay in the tournament comes to an end. Huh, what are you saying, you're gonna beat me easily? Trunks said, insulted, and that made him angry. Yeah, I am. Come over here and I'll show you what I mean. Ash said, telling Trunks to bring it. Why you? Trunks stated before rushing at Ash and throwing lots of punches and kicks, but Ash either blocked them or dodged them. You're doing nothing but wasting energy doing this Trunks. Ash said, as calming as he could. Shut up. Trunks said as Paul and the others watched carefully. Ash jumped out of the way and clenched his fist. Trunks, remember how I said I knew a loophole to the whole turning Super Saiyan thing? Ash asked to the older boy as Trunks looked on curious, and so did Paul. Yeah, what about it? Trunks retorted as Ash grinned. Ash let out a small yell as a golden Super Saiyan aura appeared around his body, but his hair, Tail and eyes didn't change, they stayed their regular black color. Trunks' eyes widened when he saw this. Paul was surprised to see this too, and he figured it out. Ash was using the power of Super Saiyan but without actually transforming into a Super Saiyan. That was the loophole he was talking about. Now he didn't need to worry about that stupid rule about turning Super Saiyan, they didn't have to worry now. He has to admit, it was pretty smart of Ash to come up with this. Goku was surprised too as he exactly what Ash was doing. Piccolo only smirked as Vegeta narrowed his eyes at the sight. Ash grinned further seeing Trunks' expression, and before Trunks could do anything about Ash blitzes him and knocked him across the face with enough force to send him flying out the ring and onto the ground. Bulma was surprised when she saw Trunks land outside the ring as Chi-Chi was cheering for her boy. Paul smirked as he knew Ash had his ticket to the finals now that Trunks was out. All he needed to do now was take out Goten and he would meet Ash in the final round to finally settle their score. And it's a ring out, folks, Ash will advanced. The announcer told to the crowd who cheered, but most of them were in shock, surprised and mostly speechless when they saw Ash suddenly shining golden for that brief moment before it disappeared from his body. Ow! Trunks said in pain, rubbing his cheek where Ash had hit him. Hey, you okay? Ash said looking over the older boy. Yeah, I'm fine, but what was that? You looked like you went Super Saiyan but didn't actually do it. Trunks said, completely confused on what Ash did right there. It's Super Saiyan power. I channeled the power of a Super Saiyan, Trunks, without actually transforming. I knew I couldn't turn into an actual Super Saiyan because of the rule Gohan made, but this was loophole I said back in the ship. Remember? He said we couldn't turn Super Saiyan, he didn't say anything about just using the power of one. Ash explained as Trunks looked a little ticked. Well, I don't like it. I got took out too fast. This is a real bummer. Trunks said as he got knocked out of the tournament so quick. Hey, don't worry, there's anyways next time. Ash said as he stepped off the ring. Maybe. Trunks said as he and Ash walked into the small building. Man, I'm surprised. I didn't know Ash could turn into a Super Saiyan. Goku said, amazed at his youngest son at being able to turn into a Super Saiyan at such a young age. Wait, how did you know that Ash could go Super Saiyan, Goku? Krillin asked, wondering how his best friend knew about this. Cause that power Ash used by those who mastered Super Saiyan like me and Gohan did during Cell's attack. I would know since during my time in the other world, Frieza and his goons were causing trouble in HFIL and I stepped in and I used the same thing Ash did to beat them. That means Ash mastered Super Saiyan and he did it while he's so young. I wonder when he learned how to become one. Goku said, amazed, wondering how Ash became a Super Saiyan and when. He did 6 months ago while training with me. Piccolo told as Goku looked at him, and so did Krillin. Wow, really? So you mean Ash was training with you the whole time? Goku asked as Piccolo nodded. Yeah, he's been training with me for a year now. He wanted to get stronger and I saw potential in him. I wanted to see what he got in him and I wasn't disappointed. Piccolo told as Goku grinned. Really? How strong do you think he is now? Goku asked curiously, wondering how strong his youngest son must be to have been training with Piccolo all this time. In an honest guess from training with him and him fighting in and mastering Super Saiyan, I can safely say he's stronger than you and Gohan when you both mastered Super Saiyan. Piccolo told, honestly making Goku surprised as he thought that was really impressive. Wow, that's amazing, I can't wait to see him at his full power. Goku said, his blood pumping at this. Stronger than Gohan was at the Cell Games, that's kinda scary. Krillin said, knowing anyone at that level must be strong. 1 or 2 matches later. Alright, next match, 7-year-old Goten vs 8-year-old Trunks. The announcer told as Goten and Paul came out of the building and started walking towards the ring. Alright, here we go again. Goku said, seeing the two come towards the ring. Yeah, I wonder who's gonna win this round. Krillin wondered as Goten doesn't look too worried, but Paul had a smirk on his face, and being that he was Vegeta's kid, that wasn't a surprise. Paul, you can win. Bulma called out to her youngest son, hoping he doesn't get knocked out of the tournament like Trunks. Come on, Goten, get the win like your brother did. Chi-Chi cheered for her oldest of her twin boys. If both her boys make it to the finals, it won't matter who wins or loses, they'll both still do the winner prize and the runner-up prizes together. Both boys got onto the stage and faced one another as Ash watched on, wanting to see what will happen in this fight. Alright fighters, begin. The announcer proclaimed as Goten got into a stance, since he knew that Paul wasn't like the other kids and knew Paul wasn't one to be taken lightly in a fight. Paul only stood there with his arms crossed. Goten rushed towards Paul and started throwing punches and kicks like Trunks did, but unlike Ash, Paul wasn't even moving and took the hits. But strangely, he looked like he was even taking the slightest bit of damage from Goten's hits. Come on, is that best you can do? Paul said as Goten jumped back. Wow, Paul, none of my hits hurt you? Goten asked, wondering how that was possible. Nope, not one hit, you're going to have to try harder or I'm going to end this quickly. Paul said, getting a little cocky, and for good reason, since Goten wasn't a real threat. Fine, I'll use something my big brother Gohan taught me, Kamehame. Goten chanted as he capped his hands together and a blue appeared. Paul noticed and could feel the power coming from it. Impressive, but like I said, I'm going to end this quickly. No hard feelings, but Ash is the one I want to fight, so you'll have to go, Goten. Paul said to the younger kid. Ha! Goten called out, firing the blue beam of energy. Ha! Paul yelled out as a golden aura appeared around him like Ash had done, and like Ash, his hair, tail and eyes didn't change at all. Paul held out his hand and caught the beam, stopping it from coming any further, and sent into the sky. Huh? Goten said in shock, but before he could say anything further, Paul appeared in front of him and kicked him in the gut, knocking the wind out of him and sending Goten flying out of the ring and onto the glass. Huh? Chi-Chi looked on in shock as Bulma cheered, seeing her youngest son winning this time. Ash smiled, knowing now that Paul was the opponent he definitely going to face in the finals of the junior tournament now. Exactly like they wanted. And Paul is the winner. The announcer called out as the crowd was a little quiet after seeing Goten's Kamehameha. Mr. Satan was the most scared, as he knows he's seen those moves before at the Cell games. Vegeta let out a smirk, seeing his youngest son win effortlessly this time around and proving he was stronger than Kakarot's son. Oh man, Goten lost this one. Goku said, a little sad, seeing that Goten lost this battle and so easily too. Well, at least we'll get to see who win when Ash and Paul battle. The two of them are rivals, they got this strong because they wanted to prove they're better than one another. Krillin said, knowing the story between Ash and Paul rivalry. It reminded him so much of Goku and Vegeta rivalry. Paul looked down at Goten, who got up and puffed out his cheeks. Hey, no fair, Paul, you cheated. Goten said, looking sour at his loss as Paul rolled his eyes. Don't be such a baby, I didn't actually turn Super Saiyan, so there was no cheating. Ash did say there was a loophole, and seeing him do it meant we could as well. Not my fault you didn't do the same. Paul said as he just did what Ash did during his fight with Trunks and only channeled the Super Saiyan power without actually transforming. Fine, but that means you'll fight Ash in the finals, right? Goten asked as Paul walked off stage. That's right. Paul said as he walked into the building with Goten following. Well, you did the same thing I did, huh? Ash said as he and Trunks went to them. Yeah, I did, I'll admit, your idea worked great. Paul admitted. Yep, but it doesn't work for long, right? Ash asked as Paul nodded as the two other boys looked confused. Yeah, channeling the power works, but since you're not actually going into the true state of Super Saiyan, channeling the power only works for a short time. That means in our fight, I will actually have to go Super Saiyan to fight you. I don't care about that rule when it comes to fighting you. Paul said as he won't let the rule stop him from fighting Ash at full power. Yeah, me too. Ash said as he knew their fight would be a great one. Once that was over with, Ash and Paul went on to fight the others kids that were left in the tournament. Needless to say, they made it to the finals with no effort at all on their part. BGM. Majin Blue. Last Ultra Battle. I'm not that good at writing fight scenes, so if you don't like how I write the battle, then I'm sorry. After that, Ash and Paul were on stage facing each other as the announcer held up his mic. This is it, folks, we have made it to the finals of the Junior Division Tournament, and we have our two finalists here now. On one side, we have Ash, and on the other side we have Paul. The announcer proclaimed as the crowd cheered for the boys. Ash, knock him out and win this match. Chi-Chi called out to her son, wanting her baby boy to win this. Paul, show him who's boss. Bulma called out to her soon, not wanting her youngest to lose. The two glared at one another, hearing the other's comments. Well, this is it, time to see who's the stronger one out of the two. Krillin said as even Vegeta and Piccolo coming up for a closer look to see the boys' fights with Goku between them. I can't wait, I could tell the boys were strong, but in this fight, I'll be able to see them go all out. Goku said, wanting to have a full look at how strong the boys are. If they are equal, then it'd be much more amazing to watch. It'd be Paul who wins. I trained him with everything I've got since he was able to fight, the victory will be his. Vegeta said, thinking Paul had this fight in the bag. I don't think so, Vegeta. I've trained Ash for a whole year. If he's anything like Gohan with his potential, Paul won't stand a chance. Piccolo said, knowing he had trained Ash and knew that Ash had a good chance of winning. Vegeta glared at Piccolo. Do you really believe that, Namekian? I'd like to see the kid try. Vegeta said, spiteful as Piccolo glared back. Yeah, I do. He'll win, you'll see. Piccolo stated back. Paul had power. That'll be enough to put Ash in his place. Vegeta stated, knowing with enough power, Paul could overwhelm Ash and win. Power means nothing without control, Vegeta. Ash has techniques that could turn the tide, and if Paul's anything like you, that'll lead to his defeat. Piccolo stated back. The two were glaring at each other, thinking their student was better trained. And poor Goku, who was looking awkward, being that he was between the two at the moment. Krillin couldn't help but pity his best friend for being out in between the two like this. Ad and Paul both got into a stance, staring one another down. And begin. The announcer proclaimed. Before the two rushed at each other, delivered a punch to each other's face. The both started throwing punches and kicks, hitting one another and countering at the same time. You've gotten a lot stronger since last time. Ash told to Paul as he was countering his blows. So have you, but that won't be enough to stop me from winning. Paul stated as he saw an opening and landed a gut punch to Ash. The punch knocked the wind out of Ash, but before he could do anything, Paul uppercutted his chin, sending him flying into the air, where he regained his balance and stopped. Paul grinned and flew up to the air as well. The crowd was speechless and wide-eyed, seeing two kids flying in the air. Mr. Satan was freaking out at this point, seeing all that happened at the Cell Games happening here as well. Paul flew towards Ash and vanished, appearing behind Ash and tried to punch him. Only to miss and felt Ash's knee lodged in his gut and then kicked in the face by Ash's left foot and then sidekicked by the right. Paul went for another punch, but Ash pulled Paul move and disappeared behind him and sent him flying by a backhand. Paul went flying for a moment but regained his senses and flying a key blast at Ash, who kicked it into the sky. Ash flew towards Paul and they started throwing punches again. Come on Ash, don't let him get the best of you. Chi-Chi cheered on for her son. Paul, keep it up, you'll wear him down, keep fighting. Bulma called out for her son as well. Ash and Paul were still going at it when Ash tried to throw a punch, but Paul ducked and landed an uppercut to Ash's gut, making him groan. Ash went for another punch and got a palm from Paul in the same spot as the uppercut. He went for a third punch and in return for trying got a knee to the gut, then an elbow to the face, and a punch and final kick that sent him flying down to the ring. Luckily Ash landed on his feet as Paul came down and looked at his rival. Come on Ash, that isn't all you have, right? I know you can do better. Paul said, wondering if this was going to be another win for him. Of course I can, I'm just pacing myself, no use going full power just yet, I mean we're just starting, Paul. Ash said, getting up. Paul just smirked. Right, we're just warming up, but the warm-ups are about to come to an end. Paul said as Ash made a, come on, motion with his fingers. Paul rushed towards Ash as Ash fired a beam towards Paul once he got close towards the air. Paul dodged, making the beam go into the sky before he saw Ash's leg come up for a kick. Paul countered with his own kick as he and Ash started countering with others' kick, trying not to be the one who gets kicked. They both got ready for another kick when suddenly Ash flared Super Saiyan power, surprising Paul before he was kicked in the face with a Super Saiyan power enhanced kick. Paul was sent skidding back through the ring but stopped himself from falling out by floating into the air. Ash turned off Super Saiyan power and flew to Paul and started to attack him. Their fight sending them further into the sky, both trying to overtake the other. While they did that, Gohan and Vital finally arrived to the arena. Hey, Did we miss the fight? Gohan asked as they finally had the chance to take a turn at the punching machine. Hey Gohan, the fight has only gone on for a small bit now, things are just getting interesting. Goku said looking back at the fight with Gohan and Videl doing the same now. Ash and Paul kept countering one another when Paul saw Ash about to punch him, but he knew better this time. He ready his own punch, and when they were about to collide, they both used Super Saiyan power at the same and started attacking back and forth again. Gohan looked surprised at this before realizing this is what Ash meant. He should have seen this coming when Ash looked happy about a loophole he mentioned. Goten and Trunks were watching the fight with excitement. Awesome, this is fun to watch. Goten said in amazement, but Trunks was a little ticked for it. I guess, but I say it should have been me fighting there. Trunks said ticked that he couldn't fight now. Sure, he didn't train as much as Paul does, but maybe if he did, he would be fighting right now. Ash and Paul were getting higher into the sky until Ash broke the fighting by kicking Paul in the face and sending him down with a double axe hand. Paul recovered and flew back at Ash. He sent a punch, but Ash grabbed it and Paul's other fist too when he used it too. Paul struggled to get to his fists free before he went forward and he butted Ash in the face. Ah, my face. Ash cried before getting a punch to gut and kicked away far but regained his balance. He rubbed his face and grinned. This is great, I finally get to use all I learned and put it to the test. Ash said as Paul heard this. Good, it wouldn't be a real fight if you didn't give it your all. Paul said as he didn't want Ash holding back. Great, since you say that, you can't blame for me this. Ash said, making Paul confused. Huh, blame you for WH. Before he could finish, Ash put his hands to his face. Solar flare. Ash called out and suddenly a blinding light appeared hitting Paul's eyes. Actually, a bunch of the spectators in the seats, including their mothers, and even Goku, and the others were affected except for Gohan and Master Roshi since they wore sunglasses. Ah, my eyes, you jerk. Paul cried holding his hands to his eyes. Sorry Paul, had to do it, but don't worry, it's be over soon. Ash said before appearing to the stunned Paul and landing a double axe hand sending Paul all the way back down to the ring. Paul landed on since he didn't know how far he would go. Up in the air, Ash cupped his hands and chanted the familiar chant. Kamehame. Ash chanted as the ball of blue energy formed in his hands. Paul opened his eyes, his vision returning to him. I can see again. Paul said glad but suddenly heard something. Ha! Ash called as he fired the attack towards Paul. Paul looked up to see the attack coming towards him and braced himself as he held up his hands. He caught the attack but was straining himself to hold. Ash put more energy into the attack causing Paul's struggles to become worse. Woo! Come on Ash, you can do it. Goku cheered on for his son as Vegeta looked ticked at this as Piccolo smirked. Do it honey. Chi-Chi cheered for her son. Come on Paul, don't give up. Bulma called out to her son. Paul struggled with the beam before he got angry. That's enough. Paul shouted before his golden aura flared up, but this time his hair stood up and turned golden along with his tail and his eyes turned teal. He pushed the beam into the sky easily before flying towards Ash with the speed Ash couldn't keep up at that moment and got a hard punch to gut that knocked the wind right out of him and sent him down to the ring. Ash landed hard as he was on his knees from the hit as Paul landed in front of him. Mostly everyone was surprised when Paul suddenly turned blonde. Oh man, here we go. Gohan said as Videl was wide-eyed seeing the boy turn blonde as well. Well, it's certainly about to get more interesting. Vegeta said seeing and feeling his son's power in his Super Saiyan form. He didn't care about the rules, good for him. Time to end this. Paul said he held up a ki blast to blast Ash with it. Did you forget that I can turn Super Saiyan as well Paul? I won't let you win that easily. Ash said as his tail came over and grabbed Paul's leg and pulled him. What? Paul said as he fell and fired the ki blast into the sky. Ash's tail off on him as Ash jumped back and transformed into a Super Saiyan himself. The crowd was speechless seeing this happen. Mr. Satan was mostly scared this time around. Oh man, these kids, they're just like the ones back in the Cell games, oh man it's all over for me. Hercule thought as he was freaking. Paul got up and looked at the now Super Saiyan Ash who also had his aura flaring. So it's time to get seriously huh? Paul said as he smirked and Ash grinned. Yep. This fight has great but it's time to end it. Ash said as Paul agreed. Yeah, let's end this. Paul said as Ash nodded. Yep. Ash said as he and Paul suddenly disappeared from view. The crowd was confused on where the two went before they suddenly heard shockwaves. They looked into the sky to see shockwaves booming in the sky. Man, these boys, they're certainly powerful for their age. Master Roshi said, seeing the boys are so powerful, probably more than Gohan was at their age. They definitely are. Yamcha said, amazed at seeing how much talent the two had. With said boys, they finally came back into view with their fist in each other's faces. They both sent each other flying back. Okay, time to use my strongest move. Paul said as he put his right hand under his left and started gathering purple energy. Vegeta saw this and smirked. Guess we'll see if my son wins this. Vegeta said, seeing his son about to use his signature technique. Ash Clear felt Paul's power rising and decided that he should do the same. Alright, guess all this again. Ash said as he capped his hands again and started gathering blue energy. Alright, let's see how this goes. Goku said, seeing this is a great match. Piccolo smirked seeing this. Kamehame. Ash chanted. Gaelic gun. Paul stated. Both attacks pulsed. Fire. Ash and Paul called out as they fired their attack and making them collide. The attacks let out a great burst of power that caused a lot of wind, making the audience a little hard to stay in their seats. Come on. Chi-Chi and Bulma cheered on for their sons. Do it. Goku, Vegeta and Piccolo called to their son's student. The attack exploded, making a great wind blow out. In it, Ash and Paul were fighting back and forth again. They both held each other back by their hands and started to fly down to the ring fast. They started throwing punches again as they got closer to the ring. Time to end this. Ash and Paul stated as they charged energy into their fist. Ha! And they both slammed their fist into each other's faces for the third time. The force of the attacks so strong that they sent each other flying. Crash. Right into the ground hard. BGM. Majin Blue. Last Ultra battle ends. Oh man, that hurts. Ash said, rubbing his cheek. Ash said, not realizing what happened. Ah, that bites. Paul said, trying to ignore the pain, also not realizing what happened. Well folks, I wouldn't believe it if I didn't see it, but we believe to have a tie. The announcer called, making Ash and Paul suddenly aware of their places. They were both on the out of bounds on the grass. The audience were in shock and even the group of Z fighters were surprised by this. But none so more than Ash and Paul themselves. Oh, are you kidding me? Ash and Paul yelled out.